Okay, welcome back into another installment. Actually, it's only the second installment of the Penn State Breakdown with Adam Breneman here on PennLive. This big guy is Adam Breneman, played at Penn State, tight end, also played at UMass. Adam, we have a lot to talk about after Penn State's opening win over Appalachian State. The win that almost wasn't, 45-38 in overtime. But we're going to fast forward a little bit to this week at Pitt.
Yep.
It was once a big rivalry game, probably not as much of a rivalry game now. I think it means more to Pat Narduzzi maybe than anyone on the planet.
Yep.
But let's just talk specifically. We have you here. We're going to use your expertise. Let's talk specifically about some things you saw in the Appalachian State game that could impact Penn State's effort against Pittsburgh. And let's start with a guy that I think is Mr. Excitement right now in the Penn State offense, and that's redshirt freshman wideout KJ Hamler. Had a large say in the outcome with a big kick return, a touchdown catch. I think he had 4 catches for 68 yards when Penn State really needed it. What did you see from that guy working out of the slot that maybe bodes well for Penn State's offense?
Yeah, KJ is clearly a very special player. I mean, you look at what he was able to do. I mean, and let's start with how difficult it is to actually play as a redshirt freshman as he is. To play that early and to have that kind of role and with a team like Penn State, it's special. And a guy that had some adversity in high school, you know, with his ACL tear, and you know, we saw a big time play. That touchdown catch was, I mean, that was a huge play in the game to essentially win the game for Penn State. We saw him on the kickoff return make a little bit of maybe a not very smart play, you know, a play that a freshman would make when he almost didn't bring the kick out.
We were talking about that, and there's a rule there, right?
Hesitated, yeah. There's a so you know. The first thing you learn when you're a kick returner at Penn State is if you hesitate at all, you don't take the kick out. So actually watching that, it was no, and then obviously made a huge play. But that was a really kind of a big mistake that ended up being an unbelievable play, and that's the kind of player he is, a guy that could make mistakes, and with his athleticism and how good he is with the ball in his hands, is kind of makes up for it. And that was the play. I don't think Penn State wins that game without that kickoff return. But he's a special player. I think we'll see him have a bigger role as the season goes on. You know, the number one thing that keeps freshmen from playing is the coaches not trusting them. And I think as we see, you know, Coach Franklin's going to trust KJ Hamler when the game's on the line from now on. So I think we'll see his role increase even more.
Pat Narduzzi talked about him when he was kind of breaking down the Penn State offense, which tells you that they're very much aware of what he can do. But when you see him and how dangerous and how quick he is with his movements, and if he gets the ball in space, if you're trying to defend him, Adam, I don't know that do you want to try and be physical with him at the line of scrimmage? Do you want to play off him and hopefully he runs a bad route? How do you defend that?
Yeah, it's tough. That's the hard part is you can't play him man-to-man because he you know, he'll run by you. He's too shifty. He's too quick. And if you play zone, you open up other people to get open against him. So he's definitely a matchup problem. He's kind of helps. I think he helps fill that big play void that Penn State may have missing Saquon Barkley. So I like I said, I think Ricky Ronnie's going to find ways to get the ball in his hands, whether it's running the ball, whether it's catching the ball. You know, he's going to continue returning kicks, and I think he'll continue to, you know, be a big-time player. And I think he's the kind of guy. He's small, but he's the kind of guy that could play in the NFL in a few years.
You mentioned Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley's history against Pittsburgh is very good. In 2016, he scored 5 touchdowns out there. Last year, he had over 100 yards of total offense and 2 touchdowns, including a big pass catch down the middle for a touchdown early in the second half. They don't have, obviously, Saquon Barkley. He's with the Giants. But what they do have are 2 very talented running backs in Miles Sanders and Ricky Slade. You could also say Mark Allen as well. But what did you see from Miles Sanders and Ricky Slade against App State? And maybe what do you think they're going to bring to the table, moving forward?
You know, I said this last week about replacing Gesicki. You know, you can't replace Saquon Barkley. And for the fans looking to replace Saquon Barkley, it's not going to happen. And I think it's unfair to think that Miles Sanders will be Saquon Barkley. But he's pretty darn close, as we saw on the game Saturday. And really dynamic player. You know, he's kind of it's you know, he seems so young. He's really a veteran now. He's in his 3rd year there. I think he played really well for kind of his first time being the go-to back. I think we saw him a little bit better than Saquon in this category is not having negative rushing. rushing plays and sticking his foot in the ground and making good plays and getting back to the line of scrimmage. Hit a few home runs as we saw with that big run in overtime. And, I think he's a special player. And then you talk about Ricky Slade. Had that really big run. It looked like he got shot out of a cannon when for that touchdown run. And he's a guy that just got there this summer. And that's even, to play as a true freshman when you just got there in the summer and didn't even enroll early is really special. It says something about him. And I think those two guys will be a really good 1-2 punch. And let's not forget about Mark Allen. I mean, he is the veteran of that running back group. Mark Allen's a guy who is respected by everyone in that program. Just an Energizer bunny with everything he does. And I think he played pretty well. He had a few nice plays. He had a swing pass he caught in the backfield that he broke a few tackles on. So I think you're going to see those three running backs continue to rotate. I know fans probably want to see Miles Sanders in there all the time, but the reality is that to make it to the Big Ten, they're going to have to play all three. And I think they have a really good three backs there. It could be a big strength for this program.
Yeah, just one follow-up with Miles. I think he ended up with 19 carries for 91 yards, two touchdowns. He caught a couple passes. Watching him against Appalachian State, I got the sense, I don't know if you agree, he seemed like once he got into a rhythm, he kind of even got better. Once the workload was there, when he was behind Saquon, he would get 1 or 2 carries a game. And I think I always felt like he was pressing because he knew he was going to get limited opportunities. Do you see him as a guy that the more you give him the ball, the better he gets in game? Yeah,
I think that's how it is with most running backs is they want the ball all the time. And Miles, when you can get in a groove and get your confidence going in a game, it's hard to come in and come out, out. So I think he's a guy, he looks more confident. He's playing more confident. He's playing physical, as we saw on Saturday. And the number one thing, one of the top things that keeps running backs from playing well is pass protection.
Right.
And I think we saw him do a really good job on Saturday, picking up the loose guys off the edge, communicating with the O-line on different pass protections. And that's something that maybe the average fan doesn't notice, but I think that Miles is a much improved player from the last 2 years that we saw.
Now I'm going to ask an offensive guy a defensive question. I don't know if you're ready for it, but Penn State actually played pretty decent on defense for the first 3 quarters. I mean, they really didn't give up much. The App State scored on a kickoff return in the first half, but the last 15 minutes, Adam, 28 points. They scored almost at will. You could really argue that App State was in great position to win that game. The last 15 minutes, in your mind, I know Penn State was a little bit shorthanded. What did you see from the Penn State defense, and maybe would explain at least a little bit why they were so sloppy at the end?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing to remember is, and the panic that ensued after the close game is, Appalachian State's a really good program. They do everything the right way, and they do it really well. And Penn State found a way to win the game, and that's what good teams do at the end of the day. You got to find a way to win when you face adversity, and Penn State did that. With that said, I think that it's definitely alarming. That number one, it was a close game. Number two, that with the fourth quarter that we saw, and we've seen that in the past with Penn State, kind of being a little lackadaisical in the third and fourth quarter. We saw it last year against Washington. We saw it against Ohio State, against Iowa, even USC before. So it's definitely concerning. And I think you look at this team compared to last year's team, a ton of production lost on the defense. Jason Kabinda, Christian Campbell, Marcus Allen, Troy Apke. I mean, these are big-time players. Grant Haley, that will all play in the NFL. The Cothran defensive line. Brothers. They're not brothers, but a ton of production. And those are all guys that will play in the NFL. So replacing those guys is tough. And I think a lot of what we're seeing now on the defensive side of things is that the superstars that they have are all young. They're freshmen and sophomores that are inexperienced and don't have a ton of game time to kind of lean back on. So, we're seeing the older guys taking the lead that maybe aren't as talented. So I think it's it could be not a difficult year, but I think it's a little bit of a rebuilding year for the defense. And hopefully Coach Pry, who's a mastermind at figuring out how to handle this kind of stuff, can figure out how to keep those fourth quarter lapses from happening. But at the end of the day, Penn State found a way to win the game. They got an interception when they needed it. Amani with a huge play. So I think it's going to be an exciting season, but there may not be as many blowouts as we're used to seeing.
All right, that's it for this week's edition of the Penn State Breakdown with Adam Breneman here on PennLive. We will be back next week to talk a little bit about Penn State's effort against Pittsburgh and look ahead to that big Kent State game.